Hi everyone, and welcome to another tutorial here on www.unitycookie.com. This is the second part of the third tutorial in the tower defense tutorial here. So we'll just be taking a look at the second half of the in-game GUI, or of this starter version of it anyway, that will be making the turrets actually spawn in as they should. So let's take a look at what we have. So pretty simple. Start with as we went over in the part one, we got the little bit of GUI going on here with some non-hooked up but still ready to go info. Got a button over here that we can open up and bring in sort of a build menu and hide. And we did all that in part one, so make sure you check that out if you need to. Now we'll be going over how to make this grid pop up and do its thing. So it has a bit of a highlight effect, like so when we're over it, and of course it turns on and off whether or not you're in build mode. And when you click, it drops on the turret that you selected. So I can select the missile turret, drop that one on, or the regular cannon turret and drop that one right where we click. Just some small notes: when you click on an area that already has a turret, it won't double drop one or anything like that. And if you click on the outside, obviously it doesn't accidentally, if we have no errors where it puts something in a random location or anything like that. And there's absolutely no clicking allowed once you're no longer in build mode. So let's take a look at how this is created. So first of all, let's look at the game level here. It's pretty straightforward. I have just a big giant plane in the background being used for the background area here. Pretty simple with just a tiled texture on it. Nothing too fancy. You can use whatever you like for the background, and of course we'll make that much fancier for the final version. On top of that, you have a couple things here, mainly the placement planes, and this is just a group full of single planes. And I had tried a couple different ways to get a good grid system going, and this just really ended up being the simplest way of doing it, so I stuck with it, although it seems a little crazy to have all these different planes. Just it made things work really nice and easily. So it really is just a giant pile of planes here, one after another, that are lined up. So quick tip, as you're making this, if you select, let me turn these on while I'm at this. So each of these obviously is a prefab, so that way I can only edit one at a time and they'll all update at once. Make sure you do that or it will be very painful to edit. So if I select the prefab in the project folder, turn on that mesh render, now I can see it there. And I'm going to actually hide the background plane. Let's name that too while we're at it, something better. I'm just going to hide that so I can't select it. And drag select. So as I was saying, if you're adding these planes in, the simplest way to do it really is select them like so, and then you can just hit Control D to make a copy. And if you need to get it lined up just right, just hold down V on the keyboard, and then you get the snapping. So you see where the handles will stick right there, and you can stick it right to the next, and so forth to keep making more. So I'll just delete those since I don't need them. Very quick, simple way to make more and more and more. I usually start with 1, go to 2, go to 4, 8, 16, so forth. So just keep on doubling it, nice and easy. Okay, so those are the planes, and then each of these, again, all it is a simple mesh render with a box collider on it. The box collider is so that in-game, what's actually happening is when you're in build mode, there's a ray that's shot down from the camera whenever you're hovering over here. And if the ray hits one of these planes, and that's why it has to have a box collider so that it'll hit it, then it lights it up and lets you place something on it if it's open. So pretty simple. A couple things on this. We have created a layer. I should say I have created a layer, you will too, a layer called placement plane, and that way the ray will only actually cast against that layer, which we'll see in script in a moment. Cleans things up a bit and make sure we don't have too much raycasting going on or hits. And then we have tag. I've created 2 new tags, placement plane underscore open and placement plane underscore taken. And these will be used to make sure that you can't accidentally double place any structures on the same plane. So obviously make sure they start out as open, and then they'll become taken once something is on it. So again, pretty straightforward there. I'm going to go back to the prefab here and turn off the mesh render just so it's ready to be back in game, since that's turned on when the build menu comes in. And let's go and take a look at the script. So we looked a little bit at this when we were doing the just the GUI portion. Now we'll look at the whole thing. So we have a couple of variables up top here to start with. We have the placement planes root, and this is just the root right up here. Remember the top level transform that's holding all of these. We have the hover material, and that's the material that the plane switches to when you're hovering over it, which is simply a material in the project area here that I have called highlight OK. Then I have highlight default, which is just the regular one that's on there always. And we have the placement layer mask, and this is referring to that layer mask that we set for the placement plane, again called the placement plane naturally. And that way, when we're doing the raycasting in the script, it will only cast against that exact layer, so you don't worry about getting any false positives or something like that. So just a way to narrow it down a bit more and quickly. A couple private variables as well. The original material, which is going to be set in script, and that's we'll get into that a bit, I guess. And also last hit object, another private variable that we'll see in the script further down. A couple more things here for variables. We have an on color, an off color, and these are used to set the color of the button. So going back to the GUI, so if I open this, it changes to orange when that particular turret type is selected. And this actually looks kind of cool without any background going on. A little bit Tron-ish or something like that. Neat. So hey, one more idea for you guys when you're making your own. Go crazy. All sorts of fun things you can do with this. Okay, so anyway, yep, the what was I talking about? The orange. This orange is that off color. Bring this back up here. So we have the on color and off color. Or sorry, I mean the orange is the on color. So when that that button is selected and we're going to use that structure, it changes to that. Let's look back at the script. So we have an on color. In my case, I've made it orange and fairly opaque. And the off color is back to the regular sort of greenish, bluish color here. So aquamarine or whatnot. And again, back to the script. Variable all structures. This one is a array that holds all the various structures that are possible to build for the player at this time in the game. So currently there's just the two, the turret twin cannon and the turret SAM that we've built in the previous tower defense tutorials here. So I just drop those in 0 and 1. Notice that those line up directly with the build button graphics. They're in the same order. This one corresponds to the cannon, and this one corresponds to the missile. And that's important because we're using the special index, the build button or the structure index, which again we'll get into a little further down, and you probably remember from the GUI building in the part 1 of this tutorial as well. So anyway, structures array is there, and then we just have let's see, the build button graphics like I was saying, and the structure index. So let's take a look how this works then. So the first thing, when the game starts up, obviously we just got a function start, and we're going to reset the structure index, refresh the GUI. So structure index we knock down to 0 and update the GUI. So this is going to make sure that right away we're setting the selected structure as 0 in the array, which means it's going to be right here 0, so the turret twin cannon, and that also means that the selected graphic is the button cannon right there. Then right after that we call update GUI, and in this case what that's going to do is go through, or what it always does in this case is important, it goes through all the build button graphics in case you had lots of them, and sets their color to the off color, the aquamarine, and then sets only the selected one to on. So that of course would be, since we set up here, we set that structure index to 0, it sets the correct one, the twin cannon, to be orange, to be on. So this just gets the game set up and ready. Of course, this also gives you some options if you wanted to set a certain default build item. Maybe it doesn't have to be 0, maybe it's certain other ones. Maybe in your game you're going to even go as far as saving the player's favorite structure to build or something, and always set that as the default structure. Lots of things you could do with that, just a way to set it and have it be editable by code right at start. So let's see, going right in order as we play. So let's just play through this again and look at the first step or two that happens. I'm going to turn back on the background though. So once again, if you remember from the part 1 of the GUI, when we click on this arrow, this pops up and closes obviously. And we're also doing one more thing in that GUI. Way down at the bottom, that's the toggle build panel. And when we open it down here, it besides just doing the tweens and making the animations happen and look pretty, it also sets build panel open to true. So if we look up here under function update, it's always checking if the build panel is open. And if it is, then we're going to do some fancy stuff, shoot some rays and so forth, and see if we're hovering over anything. So let's say we open it, it's now open, and we'll see that now we get the, of course, a little highlight effect and the ability to place turrets. So we have the obvious, if build panel open, and then we create a ray, and we're just doing camera.main.screen point to ray, and then input.mouse position. So this is simply sending a ray directly from where the mouse pointer is, right out in the forward direction from the camera, and whenever it hits, that's going to come back as the hit, which is going to be a raycast hit type. So to actually cast that ray is this bit here. We say if physics.raycast, then we do the ray, which we've created, hit, which is the what it's going to return if it hits something. 1000 is the distance it's going to actually travel, and the layer that it should cast against. So once again, we're using this layer just to make absolutely certain that this ray never hits anything except the placement planes. So keeps it simple and make sure we don't have, again, any type of false positives or such. So if this if comes back does true, of course, then we keep going here. And first thing we want to check is if we have already hit an object. So just saying if we've already hovered over something and it's become selected, like so, then we want to make sure and make its material back to the original material. So we're just going to visually deselect it in case we're about to select something else, or deselect entirely by going off the edge or so forth. And then we're going to do this last hit object, hit.collider equals game object. So now we're going to replace the that last hit object with whatever we just hit. So just saving that in so we can use it as the newly selected plane. Then we're going to store the original material of that plane so that we can reset it backward. Hopefully it's making more sense than it sounds like it is to me right now, but basically visually deselect whatever was selected before, get the new selected object, store its current material before we've changed it to the highlighted material, and then swap its material over to the hover material. So, and once again, there's lots of comments in this code now, so in case it doesn't make sense, but probably does, should be fine. So anyway, we do all of that. That is, if we hit something. Otherwise, if this raycast hits nothing, or it doesn't hit anything on that exact layer mask, then obviously the mouse is outside the edge of the tiles, and we need to deselect whatever was selected. So down here, we do just check if something was actually selected before. So if we have a last hit object, and we ask that first because let's say you're playing the game and you open this up and nothing is selected, so there's no last hit object. Excuse me, no last hit object, and the code would normally just try and set its render material to the original and set the last hit object to none, and all of a sudden you've got a null ref because it doesn't actually exist. So we have to check first of all if there's already been a last hit object. If so, then obviously we want to set its material back to the original material, which again we set back here in this step. and then set the last hit object to none, which will mean that now there's nothing hit, then later on in the code we're not going to be able to accidentally drop anything at a null location. So that'll come into play a little further down. So once again, just going over that real quick, if we don't hit anything, if we don't hit any placement planes, then if there was one previously selected, we're going to set its material back to the original standard material, and we're going to make it so there's 0 reference in the last hit object variable. Okay, so last, once again, only, this is still within the if build panel open, so we're making sure none of this happens. We're not using up CPU cycles unless that build panel is actually open, because it wouldn't make sense to otherwise. We're going to check for the get mouse button down, and we're doing this last to make sure we've had a chance to go through and select or deselect anything we need to. So we're checking if the mouse button is down. 0, of course, is a left mouse button, and we also want to make sure that there is a last hit object, so something is selected. And that's again where this part comes in up top here, where we were making sure to set that to null if we've, if the mouse has gone off the tiles. So now it's null. However, of course, if you're on here, it's not, and we're going to go ahead and go into this if. So if the tag on that last hit object equals placement plane open, so there's nothing on that whatsoever, it's just a regular starting placement plane, there's nothing already on it, then we can go down here and we're going to, let's open this up a bit more. Then we're going to go ahead and just pretty simply instantiate a new game object. It's going to be the structure based on the build index. So once again, just to reiterate over that build index, remember is set down here. So whenever any of these build buttons is clicked on, it calls the function setBuildChoice, and then we get the name of the button that was clicked, and we use that to set the structure index. So since we have the buttons given the exact index number that goes with their position in the array, then we can just use that and exactly keep plugging through and do all sorts of nice procedural things from it. In this case, all structures structure index. We don't need to say, try and find the name and then apply it arbitrarily based on that or anything. We can just use the index, so we know exactly which structure, which structure to place. So we can drop that in, which is again, just to go back over this. Which is coming from, of course, right in here. In the NGUI script, we made that array and dropped in just the 2 structures we've made so far, or however many you have. And then we drop it at the point exact the same center of the plane that's selected and a 0 rotation. Second thing we do, and the reason that we instantiated this into a variable, basically, is to take that item, and I'm just doing this for the fun of it to make it look a little nicer, give it a random rotation around the Y so it's spinning around looking somewhere. That's all. Lastly, we're now going to take that plane that was selected, and we just drop something on, and set its tag to placement plane taken. So that just means that we can't accidentally drop something else onto it. Just make sure that we don't get any errors like that. So pretty straightforward through there. And that's really it for everything that's going on in here. So again, has a neat look, pretty straightforward and simple. Select an item, drop it in, and move this around. There's one last thing that's going on here actually is hiding and showing all of these planes, which you have probably already guessed, especially if you have already, and kind of should have already gone through the Lunar Lander tutorials and such. Whenever that build panel is toggled open, we go through and just hide all the tiles. When it's closed, and when it's opened, we show all the build tiles. We just have a quick for loop, and we run through all the planes in the placement planes root, and that's why we have that variable up top. That's the top level root of all the planes. We run through and just set the render on or off. So pretty straightforward on that, nothing too fancy. So for everyone who that makes good sense to, you can go ahead and quit now and start making your own crazy one. Just for the heck of it, I'm going to go over one more time a little more detail on how that structure index and such works, just because when I was first learning that sort of thing, it kind of boggled my mind, maybe just because I'm really an artist at heart. and fairly new to some of these more complex things. But just in case anyone else is not quite sure what all that meant, I'm going to go just take another couple minutes and make sure that made good sense to everyone. So looking back at that again, just to really go over it real fast in another way that might make better sense. The way this is working is that we have obviously an exactly set two arrays. One that holds all the actual items to be spawned, and one that holds the buttons that are going to be clicked. And they're both in the same order, again, is the key to it. So element 0 in structures is element 0 in the buttons. So button 0 basically is turret 0, so when I click on that, it can pull it right up. So when we bring in here, if the button is cannon, then we can set the index as 0. So basically we know that we want to, if we're doing any kind of structure code, we want to use it on the array at or the element 0 in the array that we're using. So again, there's no need to use complex if statements later on and check for the name, and if this name, do that, so forth. We can one time and one time only check exactly which name, the name of what we're dealing with, set this single index, and from there always just pull the exact correct item from the array that we're using. So of course it's very important to make sure that you have all these in the exact in the correct order. So sometimes maybe you'd even want to rename, just looking at, let me go back to that here. In the in-game GUI script, we have the build button graphics, and these actually have exactly the same name here, so it's kind of hard to tell if you have them correct. Might be a good idea to call this arrow graphic, call the cannon graphic a cannon graphic, and so forth, just to make this. Make sure this all makes sense. And last in this, you also notice, of course, there is this mine graphic in here, or the button that isn't activated, and it's not dropped into the into the arrays, of course, because you don't want it accidentally used or anything like that, and it's been disabled. And the way that we disabled it is pretty simple. If you choose the button mine, all I did was turn off the box collider. So this way it simply won't accept any kind of click-throughs or anything like that in the GUI. So it's just there, it's disabled, and it's very easy, of course, to turn back on via script if you need to. So there you have it. Hopefully that lasts a little bit on the structure index and using the arrays made a bit more sense. Again, you guys probably all got it the first time, but just making sure there's any other poor sucker like me who's really just an artist doing the code as best I can. Which turned out pretty well. Maybe this will be better for you. So, hope you guys enjoyed that. We'll be doing some more soon. The next one ought to be the mine turret. It's not necessarily a turret, but a structure that should blow up if an enemy walks into it. We'll be doing that next, and thanks for watching.